All right, Shabbos say good morning, good morning, good morning. So what a schus it is, Baruch Hashem, to be able to learn the Daf together from the holy city of Tzfas after Baruch Hashem. It's incredible. It feels like we've been here a long time, considering the number of things that we've done. Baruch Hashem, Rabbi Akiva, the Ramchal, Baal Shem Tov, Shmuel, Mikveh, the Arizal, and now Baruch Hashem we get to wake up in this beautifully holy city and now begin to learn HaKadosh Baruch Hu's Torah together. Such a dramatic way. So both sides, we also have the great schus today to begin Perek Tes Zayin. I'm sorry, Perek Sheni, the second Perek of... No, sorry, let's try that again. The third Perek of Meseches Nazir. Sorry, okay, a little bit off with my timing. Daf Tes Zayin. Daf Tes Zayin. Daf Tes Zayin. So both sides, let's begin the Mishnah and really just what a schus it is to be able to learn Torah's Am Yisrael in Eretz Yisrael. It's like the perfect convergence of multiple universes of Kedusha coming together. Let's begin. Misha Amar Hareini Nazir. Person says, I'm going to be a Nazir. Megaleach Yom Shloshim Ve'echad. Ultimately, again, is that? Oh, that's the thing. Okay. So Misha Amar Hareini Nazir. A person who says, I'm a Nazir. Megaleach Yom Shloshim Ve'echad. So both say, remember again, a lot of these concepts that we're going to see in this new parak, we've actually seen referenced before. Now, I'm just also going to draw your attention. We're going to go ahead and rely on the Rush a lot today for the understanding of the Mishnah and the subsequent sugya. So the Rush is situated in the left-hand column of the daf. So a person says that I'm a Nazir, Megaleach Yom Shloshim Ve'echad. So both say, so in general, remember again, Stam Nazir is how long? Stam Nazir is how long? 30 days. Now remember, we had a machlokes, right? Good. So we have a machlokes, Ramasna Bar Pad, which the Rush is going to reference in just a moment, about the standard duration of a Nazirus. Is it 29 days or is it 30 days? Now obviously, again, at the conclusion of the Nazirus is when one goes ahead and cuts their hair and engages in all of the concluding sacrificial and ritual rites as well. So the Mishnah tells us is, a person says, Harini Nazir, Stam Nazirus 30 days, and therefore again, Megaleach Yom Shloshim Ve'echad. He takes his haircut on day 31. Take a quick look at the Rush. The Rush says, Misha Amar Harini Nazir Megaleach Yom Lamed Aleph. It's right in the middle of the Rush. L'Rav Masna do Amar Stam Nazirus Lamed Yom Hilchach Megaleach Yom Lamed Aleph. So the first thing the Rush tells us is the Mishnah is passing like Rav Masna, that Stam Nazirus is 30 days, and therefore Halacha L'Maisa, haircut takes place on day number 31. Ulabar Pada, Stam, reading the Rush still, Stam Nazirus Chav Tes Yom, V'Hayel L'Galeh Yom Lamid. So again, we'll discuss how Bar Pad himself reconciles with the Mishnah. We'll leave that on the side. Rabbi will say that's halacha number one. Next, but however the Mishnah says, if he took his haircut on day 30, Shabbos says, so now again, what's happening over here? We're passing Stam Naziros is Lamed Yom. Stam Naziros is 30 days. But now let's say we'll call him Ruvain. He took on a Neder Naziros, and now what happens? He goes ahead and takes his haircut on day 30. On day 30, what's the halacha? Yatsa. Now, why is he Yotze? Once again, I say, take a look at the Rush. V'im gilach yom lamid yatsa lebar pada neche demidaraisa dina hachi legaleach yom lamid. Now, I say, according to Rav Pada, who says that normally what? A stam neder naziris is how long? 29 days. So that makes perfect sense. Finish out your neder naziris 29 days, and on day number 30, you can go ahead and cut your hair. The shayla is according to Rav Masna. Rav Masna mefarish le'el mishum demiktsas hayom kikulo. Now, I will say, this is the perfect segue from the previous daf into this daf. Remember again, we spent the whole last daf yesterday, right? Yeah. Yesterday's daf that we did on Monday, right? So remember again, we spent our time focusing on the concept of Mitzvah Kakulo, the idea that part of the day could count as the whole. Remember again, we developed that idea halachically and hashkafically to point out a concept that one day could potentially have a dual identity. So here's what's interesting. So the Mishnah says, if you went ahead and you shaved, you went and you took your haircut on day number 30, ultimately, again, it could work. But see, what's driving the Rush is like this. How could it work to take a haircut on day number 30? After all, doesn't that mean that you haven't fully completed your Neder Naziros? But since we hold Miktsas Kakulo, part of the day counts as the whole. Therefore, as long as you observed part of day 30 as your Neder Naziros, you're good to go. You're good to go. Good. Let's go weiter. So the Mishnah goes weiter. Harini Nazir Shloshim Yom. Now, if a person says, I am a Nazir for 30 days, then I will say, what's the difference between the first case of the Mishnah, second case of the Mishnah? First case of the Mishnah, what is the guy saying? What is he saying? Harini Nazir. Harini Nazir. So we'll say, if you say Harini Nazir, now again, Stam Neder Naziros is for how long? 30 days, okay? Now, in case number 2, he's saying, Hareini Nazir Shloshim Yom. I'm a Nazir for 30 days. In this case, the Mishnah said, Em Gilach Liyom Shloshim Lo Yatza. If you shave on day number 30, you're not Yotzei. One second, so what's going on over here? In the first case, the Mishnah, we said that's what? If a person says, Hareini Nazir, so Nazirus is 30 days. In an ideal world, then when do you take your haircut? When do you take your haircut? Day 31. If you took your haircut on day 30, what's the halacha? You're Yotzei. In case number 2, I'm a Nazir for 30 days. If you take your haircut on day number 30, then what? You're not Yotzei. So what's the distinction? So we'll see in the Gemara, but the Mishnah already, again, the Rosh already references this. When you say Hareini Nazir Shloshim Yom, what's implicit in your statement? Shloshim Yomim Shleimim. You are accepting a Neder Nazirus for 30 complete days. It's implicit. Otherwise, we'll say, why? So we'll say, the Mishnah is operating with a basic premise, which is a person doesn't say things for no reason. Halavai, we should live up to that, right? That's an aspirational statement, right? A person doesn't make a statement, a meaningless statement. So therefore, again, if I just want to become a Nazir for 30 days, all I need to do is what? Well, what do I need to say? Hareini Nazir. If I'm saying Hareini Nazir Shloshim Yom, that must mean that I'm coming to add on something additional. What am I coming to add on? That as opposed to a regular Nazirus, where there's a Mixus Yom Kekulo concept on day number 30, I'm taking on Nazirus for 30 complete days. For 30 complete days. And therefore, Allah Lamaisa, if I take a haircut on day number 30, you can't do that, because I'm still in the midst of my Neder Nazirus. Beautiful. Let's go weiter. I'm sorry?
It's not Nazirus. We already said it's cool. If once you say Hareini Nazir, anything else after that.
Oh, good. Excellent. Hold on to that. Hold on. See, Chavri, see what happens when you is that no? I'm telling you, we're just talking about this. There's such a different dynamic in Daf. Also, like we do it normally, like first thing in the morning. It's early. It's 5:45. Here, again, after all the sleep everyone got last night, Baruch Hashem, everyone's well rested. Again, different energy. Beautiful, beautiful. We'll say. I just also want to point out. Remember, it's only our first full day in the Archei Kala. But part of what we're also going to do is, learning is not just going to be like the Daf Mesilas Yesharim in the morning. We're going to go to breakfast, we have more opportunity to talk about the Daf, we have a whole packet that Emiras Hashem we're going to learn, so it's going to be beautiful. Good, so let's go weiter.
Was that a setup?
What? It was a shiggle setup. I was kind of late. I was kind of breaking that out slowly. Yeah, trying to pick up on that. Yes, there's going to be more learning. Yes, the Gemara says. We'll say Mishnah. Misha Nazir Shtei Nazirus. We'll say, what happens if a person took on 2 Nidrei Nazirus? So remember again, Stam Nazirus is going to be 30 days. So at this point, he's taking on now 60 days of Nazirus. So Misha Nazir Shtei Nazirus, Megalech Has Harishona Yom Shloshim Ve'echad, Ves Ashniya Yom Shishim Ve'echad. So we'll say Pasha case. Again, it's just an extension of the previous part of the Mishnah. I take on Hareini Nazir, Bishil Shtei Nazirus. I take on two durations of Nazir. So I will say, how long am I a Nazir for? 60 days. But remember, in this case over here, I will say, I'm not taking on one Neder Nazirus of 60 days. I've taken on 2 consecutive terms of Nazirus. So I observe the first 30, and then what? Do my hair cutting when? Day number 31. And then I go and I observe the second Neder Nazirus and take my haircut when? Day number 61. Beautiful. Beautiful. But I will say now again, it's just an extension of the first part of the Mishnah. If I take my haircut for my first Neder Nazirus on day number 30, now why am I allowed to? Once again, I will say Chazara. Why am I allowed to take my haircut on day 30? Why? Mixes Yom Kikulo, right? Because remember again, there's a case of Hareini Nazir, not a case of Hareini Nazir Shloshim Yom. So if I take my haircut on day number 30, so ultimately, so I'll say that's fine. But then what that means is the second term. So we'll say the chap over here in this case is the first term and the second terms are mirrors of each other. So therefore, if I took my haircut on day number 30, which is fine, Mixes Yom Kikulo, I'm also going to Megaleach Hasashniya Yom Shishim. I'll take my haircut for the second term when? Day number 60. Day number 60. They have to mirror each other. However, Nabose, now watch this. V'mgilach yom shishim chasra echad. Nabose, here's what's interesting. What happens if you end up going ahead and taking your haircut on day 59? Right? Yom shishim chasra echad. Yatsa. Ultimately, again, you are yotzei. Shabbos, I see the Gemara says, actually, we'll see in the Gemara why this is. Fine. We'll see why this is. Good. Well, we don't have to do all the rush right now. Rabbi says, listen to this. V'zu eidos heyed Rab Papis al mi shegazar shenazar shtei niziros. So Rabbi say, and Rab Papis, when I will say, by the way, I'll point out over here, I will say Rab Papis was a contemporary of Rabbi Akiva. So if you notice, by the way, I will say, if you notice in the inscription, I will say, this is the beauty of learning Torah in Eretz Yisrael, that here, right, when we learn Torah in America, so it's beautiful, it's magnificent, it's incredible, but sometimes it's just a bit more esoteric and removed. Here, so many of the personalities that we discuss lived here, dwelt here. So remember again, in the inscription at Rabbi Akiva's kever, the one to the left, it told the story of Rabbi Akiva's capture by the Romans and ultimately his death. The first part of the story was Rabbi Akiva was incarcerated with Papis, with Rav Papis. They were incarcerated at the same time, right? It's an incredible thing. So Rav Papis, also I'm just pointing out, like these are, so the Gemara says as follows. So the Gemara says, hey Rabbi Papis, Amisha Nazir Shtei Nazirus, She'em Gilach es Harishona Yom Shloshim, Megalech es Hashniya Liyom Shishim. So Rabbi says, listen to this. So this Eidos, Rav Papis went ahead and he was made Ashen Misha Nazir Shtei Nazirus, that if a person went ahead and took on 2 consecutive Nidrei Nazirus, Shem Gilach es Harishon Yom Shloshim, if you went ahead and took your haircut for the first one on day 30, which you're going to both say works why? Because Mikzas Hayom Kikulo, so Megalech es Hashniya Liyom Shishim. You can go ahead and take the second haircut on day 60. Then gilach liyom shishim chaser echad. But if you went ahead and you took the second haircut on day 60 minus 1 day, so yatsa. We'll say it works. Now, how would that work? Now, so let's play this out. So now, remember, normally, remember, we'll say in a perfect world, if you're taking on 2 consecutive nidrei naziros, right? How long is the first one? 30 days. When do you take your haircut? 31. Excellent. How long is the second Neder Nazirus? 30 days. When do you take your haircut? 61. Okay, so that's the ideal. We now understand that what can you do? Technically, it
should be 62.
62. Right? We'll see. The truth is, good, we're going to get that. Good. So let's listen to this. Now, we understand also, if you end up doing it 30, right? Good. It's not calendrical days. What it's talking about is how you go ahead and you view the 2 Nidrei Naziros by themselves. As we're looking at it as 2 units of 30. So you're taking it, so you do it, you observe 30 days, and then go ahead and haircut 31. You observe the second set of 30 days, and take it on 61, which if you're counting the days actually together, would be 62. But now I understand, if I do it on 30 and 60, does that work? Why? Makes you some kakulo. Now Rabbi Papis is introducing us to the idea that if on the second Neder Nazirus, you take your haircut on day 59, it works. Then Rabbi say, how would that work? Here we go. Listen to this. Sheyom shel shloshim ola lo min haminyan. Rabbi say, watch this. Day 30 works both ways. Day 30 could be, Rabbi say this again, see, everything comes back to Miktus and Kul. Rabbi say, like we said on Monday. Anyone remember Monday? Feels like about 4.5 weeks ago, right? But if you remember again on Monday, this whole Yisrael Mitzvah Kikulo teaches me that one day could have a dual identity. So therefore, day 30 could actually count as the end of the first Neder Nazirus, and what? The last day of the first one and first day of the second one. So therefore, technically speaking, by the time you get to day 59 of the second Neder Nazirus, technically, you can take your haircut. Incredible. So the Gemara goes right there. Misha Harini Nazir. So listen to this. Misha Harini Nazir. Person went ahead and said, I'm a Nazir. Now both say again, Stam Nazirus, how long? 30 days. We'll say, but remember again, now what happens? In this case, Nitma Yom Shloshim. What happens if he becomes Tameh on day number 30? Tough break, right? It becomes, day number 30. So what's the halacha? So stress hakol. Like David said, you lose everything. Now, both say, I want to point out over here, see, what's the chiddush in that? The chiddush, right, is like David just said. Remember, I would have thought that there's a workaround around this. If you're getting tummy on day number 30, if you'll mitzvah yom kikulo, effectively I could tell you that's what I've finished in the Naziros. But again, so we're going to discuss all of this in the Gemara. But Allah Chamaisi, you go out and you become tummy on day number 30, you lost everything. You lost everything. So the Gemara says, Rabbi Eliezer says as follows. We'll say, just take a quick look at the Rush for just a moment. It's actually not so far if you go right across from the Mishnah into the Rush. So the Rush is over here, Mish Amar Harini Nazir, Nitma Yom Lamed, Sosra Sakol, Rav Masna Sosa Minatora, Umevi Carbon Tumula Barpado, Sosa Midrabanon. All the way fine. So listen to this. Rabbi Eliezer says no. Rabbi Eliezer says, Eino Soser, Ela Shiva. Rabbi Eliezer says that Allah Chalamaysa, you don't lose the whole Neder Naziris. We've actually seen this referenced before. You lose the whole Neder Naziris. Instead, what are you losing? What are you losing? You're only losing 7 days. 7 days. I'm about to say, take a look at the Rush. Rabbi Eliezer Omer Eino Soser Ela Zayin Delo Gazer Ulu Rav Masna Mishum Desavra Mixisium Kula. So I'll say, here it is. Here it is. So Rabbi Eliezer holds like this. Rabbi Eliezer holds, look, Mixisium Kikulo says that Allah Chalamaysa, once you observed part of day 30, then what? Then what? You're finished. You're done. So I'll say, so where does 7 come from? What does 7 relate to? What is Tumah? So 7 represents the amount of time that you need in order to extricate yourself from Tumah. So halacha l'maisa again, so Rabbi says incredible. So Rabbi Eliezer will say, Mesis Yom Kikulo tells you that if you became tummy on day number 30, you're good. You're good. You've observed your full Neder Naziris, but you have to go ahead and observe another 7 days corresponding ultimately to the Yom of Tumah. Hareini Nazir Shloshim Yom. So we'll say now, again, remember, we'll say this Mishnah is beautifully set up. Compliments to the author. Right? So we'll say Rabbi Udanasi, right? Whose kever is right here. Where's Rabbi Udanasi buried? He's in Tzfas? Tveria. Sipori. All right, next, Yarchei Kala. So many kvarim, so little time, right? So we'll say, we passed it. Yeah. So listen to this. So this, but again, in all seriousness, you come across Mishnayos that are just so beautifully arranged. So listen to this. So Rabbi, so now Rabbi say, what's the next case? Let's say Hareini Nazir Shloshim Yom. I'm a Nazir for 30 days. Rabbi say, let's go back to the beginning of the Mishnah. When you say you're a Nazir for 30 days, Rabbi say, what does that statement mean? What does it mean? Full 30 days. Meaning what? No mixas hayom kikulo. So now, if you say you're Nazir 30 days, nitba yom shloshim, soser esakol. Ultimately, again, if you become tummy on day number 30, you lose everything. Now, that sounds like you lose everything, even according to who? Even according to Rabbi Eliezer. Right? Even according to Rabbi Eliezer, who said that beforehand you only have to observe 7 days corresponding to the Miyat Tumah because of Mixas Kikulo. If you say Hareini Nazir Shloshim Yom, you don't get Mixas Yom Kikulo. Incredible. Next, Hareini Nazir Mea Yom. Person says, I'm a Nazir for 100 days. Nitma Yom Mea. You become tummy on the 100th day. Soser esakol. You lose everything. Shabbos say, so again, that's the Tanakama. Rabbi Eliezer Omer, no. Now, Rabbi Eliezer says, Mixis Yom Kekulo. So because you're becoming tummy on the 100th day, therefore, halacha l'maisa, you're fine. Mixis Yom Kekulo, you have it locked in. However, Eino Soser Ela Shloshim. Rather, again, halacha l'maisa, you only go ahead and be tamei 30 days. Now, I will say, the Rush points out we actually already learned this halacha before, because Rabbi Eliezer holds that halacha l'maisa, when you become tamei biyom melos, on the day in which you conclude your neder naziros, the most you could lose for a prolonged or protracted neder naziros is 30 days. Therefore, on a 100-day neder naziros, the most you're going to have to make up is 30 days. Incredible. So nitba yom mea ve'echad. Now this is interesting. What happens if you became tamei on the 101st day? On the 101st day, then what's the halacha? Soser shloshim yom. Shabbos, listen to this. So the Tanakama says we'll define all of these cases, but b'pashtos, what this means is I became tamei after the neder naziros was over, but before the corresponding sacrificial rites and haircut was able to be performed. So in this case, even the Tanakama says, listen, you finished your neder naziros. So because you finished your neder naziros, that's kind of locked in. But because you haven't performed, therefore you can't lose it in totality. But what you will have to go ahead and repeat is a 30-day duration. And in this case, Rabbi Eliezer says, no, Eino Soser Ela Shiva. The most you're going to lose in this case is what? 7 days. 7 days. Beautiful. I will say, our first Mishnah in Eretz Yisrael. First Mishnah in Eretz Yisrael. L'chaim. Even I'm a little too early. It's not 5 o'clock anywhere. Right? It's not 5 o'clock anywhere. So we're gonna stick with coffee. Black coffee is perfect right now. Says the Gemara. Says the Gemara. Let's go back there. Mishama harini Nazir. V'nitma yom shloshim. So a person says, I'm a Nazir. So remember again, let's just reinforce these concepts. A person says, harini Nazir. How long is he a Nazir for? 30 days. Now, both say, when you see harini Nazir, according to the Tanakam and the Mishnah, what halachic principle do you have the ability to tap into? Mixes Yom Kekulo. And that's a big thing. That means once you get to day 30 with an harini Nazir neder, ultimately what? Halacha lamaisa, you've locked in your neder naziros at the beginning of day number 30. So Misham harini Nazir v'nit mayom shloshim, and now you became tamei on day number 30. So stress hakol. You lose everything. Okay. So the Gemara Rabbi Eliezer says Eno soser ela shiva. Ultimately, again, you only lose 7 days. Now, I will say, by the way, before you turn the page, it's actually interesting. So Rabbi Eliezer says, why do you lose 7 days? Kidei shiyavi karbano betara. So I will say, according to Rashi, the idea over here is that why 7 days? Because ultimately, again, we want you to be able to bring your carbon in a state of ritual purity. In other words, I just want to point out, obviously, you can't bring your carbon while you are tamei. So everyone's agreeing you're going to have to undergo the 7-day ritual purification process for your tumah. What Rabbi Eliezer is adding in over here is we're going to tack on another 7 days to your naziros, so that ultimately, again, you're able to bring your carbon from a state of purity in your naziros as well. So the Gemara goes right there. Fine. Rabbi Eliezer Omer Eno Soser Ela Shiva. You only lose 7 days. Amud days. Chasav Rabbi Eliezer. Rabbi Eliezer holds. Kol achar melos shiva soser. Okay, so we'll say here it is. So Rabbi Eliezer holds like this. See, Rabbi Eliezer is holding mitzas hayom kekulo. That's what he's holding. So since we're saying mitzas hayom kekulo, therefore what? Once you get to day 30, halachically it's like what? You're done. So according to Rabbi Eliezer, what we're looking at over here is when a guy becomes tamei on day number 30, what we're effectively looking at is a guy who has become tamei after the conclusion of his neder naziros. That's effectively what we're looking at over here. So this is any time you become tamei after the conclusion of your neder naziros, the most you lose out on is 7 days. 7 days. Now, the truth is, that might not be true. In other words, we're going to see in 100-day naziros, it's more. But he means just in a stam neder naziros. Fine. So, I'm sorry? Why lose? Oh, so good. We're going to see his svara. The truth is, we actually already saw his svara. We saw Darshan Psukim, but we're going to see it again in Meretz Hashem. So the Gemara says this house. Harini Nazir Shloshim Yom. So what's the second line? Test line with base 16b. Second line from the top. Harini Nazir Shloshim Yom V'nitma Yom Shloshim. Person says, I'm a Nazir for 30 days. And so we'll say, so now remember again, this is a different case. In this case, he's explicitly articulating the duration of the neder nazirus. I am a Nazir now for 30 days. Harini Nazir Shloshim Yom V'nitma Yom Shloshim. And now he becomes a Nazir on 30 days. Soser es hakol. Ultimately, again, he loses everything. Now, both say, according to the Tanakama, why does he lose everything? Right? Why does he lose everything? Because again, he said shleimim. Right? 30 days. 30 days. So yeah, in this case, lo palag Rabbi Eliezer. Rabbi say, why doesn't Rabbi Eliezer argue on this case? Rabbi say, at the end of the day, why doesn't he argue? The Amr Shleim. Okay, so a little bit anticlimactic because the Rashi already told us this, right? But Lamaisa, what's the case? Rabbi say, when a person says Harini Nazir Shloshim, what is he really saying? Harini, the articulation of the neder is Harini Nazir Shloshim Yom. Ultimately, again, once I am a Nazir for 30 complete days. Once he makes that articulation, then halacha lamaisa, again, the Naziros goes on 30 complete days. Even according to Eliezer, and even Eliezer will say, therefore, halacha lamaisa, if you become tamei on day number 30, you go ahead and you lose the entire thing. Incredible. Harini Nazir me'ayom. Next case, I will say, person says, I'm a Nazir for 100 days, v'nit ma'yom me'ah, and he becomes tamei on the 100th day, soser es hakol. He loses everything. Rabbi Eliezer Omer Eino Soser Ela Shloshim. Right? Rabbi Eliezer says you only go ahead and lose 30 days. The Gemara says V'kula kedavinon ba'aliba de barpada v'rav masna. Rabbi said the Gemara says we already learned this discussion, and this entire Gemara was already the entire discussion between barpada and Rav Masna. Remember again, the machlokes barpada and Rav Masna ultimately again was the machlokes about whether or not the stam neder nazirus is 29 days versus 30 days. So the Gemara says we don't have to rehash that entire discussion. So Rabbi say this is the end of this sugya. So again, just to highlight what we're walking away with over here. So first of all, reinforcing the idea that we pass like Rav Masna, namely, stam neder nazirus is going to be for a duration of 30 days. Ideally, in an ideal world, you nazir for 30 days. When do you haircut? I'm using it as a verb. When do you haircut? Day 31. If you haircut on day 30, what's the halacha? It works. Why? Mixis yom kekulo. The only exception to that rule will be if you say Hareini Nazir Shloshim Yomim Shleimim. If you say that, then what? Then you are Nazir for a complete 30 days. And because of that halacha l'maisa, you can't haircut on day 30 in that case. Furthermore, again, even according to Rabbi Eliezer, if you were to become tameh on that day 30, what would happen? Halacha l'maisa, what would happen? You lose everything. You lose everything in that because, again, there you explicitly articulated 30 complete days. Milt, you're going to say.
The haircut's like a shaving, right? Like in Sarah?
Correct.
Okay, like with a razor.
And we're going to get into this. Remember, I will say, that's some. Good. Coffee is coffee. It's perfect. Right? You know, we'll say, no, it's perfect. No, it's perfect.
Where's learning?
Everything in Eretz Yisrael is perfect. So we'll say, I'll just point out is, remember, we've been doing this long enough to also know that the way these sugyas, like I will say, we have not learned about the haircut of the Nazir, or for that matter, again, the concluding carbonic rituals of the rituals. Carbonic of the Nazir. So again, remember, we're referencing all of these things, but obviously we'll see it spelled out in the coming Gemaras. Good. Rabbi saying, new Mishnah.
Why
Here we
do
go.
Rabbi only say Shleiman by 30, not 100?
Oh, so the Gemara says also, in the previous discussion, he also mentioned that it was Shleimim also by 100. Right?
But not
Not over here. So there's a whole discussion. Yeah, we'll see. We're going to come back to the case of 100. We're not finished with that yet as well. Says the Mishnah, Misha Nazir, V'hu beis hakvar. So we'll say, here we go. This is an interesting case. Here's the case. A guy is in the cemetery. He's in the cemetery, right? It's okay. Good. It's good for the chaver. Good. Beautiful. Good.
Right. He came out of the mikvah and his first thing.
So inspired. Hareini Nazir. Right? Hareini Nazir, right? People took on a lot of Kabbalahs last night. You know? So what happens?
He went down the water.
Right? So say, by the way, I'm just pointing out. It's right. So he comes out. So now, halacha l'maisa, somebody took on a neder nazirus, but he's in the cemetery. So Rabbi says, now watch this. Filo haya sham lamed yom, even if he's in the cemetery 30 days. I will say, some people like kvarim, right? They like kvarim. So he was in the cemetery for 30 days. So what's the halacha? Ein olin lo min aminyan. Ultimately, again, those 30 days do not count towards his neder nazirus. Now, the truth is, it's obvious that they don't count towards his neder nazirus. We'll see exactly what the Gemara is trying to highlight. Here's the chab, ve'eno maybe carbon tuma. So we'll say, that's really what's happening over here. In other words, what the Mishnah is teaching me is as follows. When a guy goes ahead and says, Hareini Nazir, and he's standing in the cemetery, essentially, we'll say, there are two ways to look at this. Right? Possibility one is, he's a Nazir, and what else? He's instantaneously tamei. So now he became a Nazir, and he also became tamei, and therefore Allah he has to bring a carbon tumah. So first of all, he destroys the days observed, which is really irrelevant. Why? Because he hasn't observed anything. But the real chap is that maybe he has to bring a carbon for tumah. What the Mishnah is essentially teaching me is that no, when a person says Hareini Nazir, and he's standing in a cemetery, essentially what it is a delayed acceptance. In other words, you've taken the vow, you've taken the neder, but Lamaisa, the neder doesn't really devolve upon you until when? Now I will say, it's not really even right. It's not really even until you leave the cemetery, because even once you leave the cemetery, your problems aren't over. Remember again, you leave the cemetery, you're tamei. So really, it's going to be the neder nazirus really devolves upon you when you depart the cemetery plus 7. That's the Yimei Tara. So the idea that the Mishnah is teaching me over here is that you might have thought that when you become a Nazir in a cemetery, you are a Nazir immediately. you are a Nazir immediately, and therefore, again, perhaps you'd have to bring a carbon tuma immediately. Kamash Malan, no. Kamash Malan, the Neder Naziros does not devolve upon you until you leave. I feel Ayosh.
How about the Maisa? Like, what if he says it inside a winery?
First, that's Lifnei Iver. It's Lifnei Iver to do such a thing like that.
Is it the same thing as saying?
Yeah. No, for simple reason. I'll tell you why. Simple reason is because you, contrary to popular opinion, you don't have to drink, right? In other words, you could put the cup down, right? You can now put, but
One of those backpack
camel packs, right? With the thing, right? Good. Yeah, no, you can become a Nazir even in a winery, right? So I'll say, the Gemara says as follows. Listen to this. So afilayim shalnam yom ein olo min aminyan ve'eno maybe carbon tuma. Good. Yatsa v'nichnas. Now we'll say, now watch this. So we'll say, here's the timeline. He went ahead and he took the Neder Naziros, and then what? Then he left the cemetery, and then he came back in. Yatsa v'nichnas. Only lo min aminyan. So we'll say, ultimately, again, now obviously the days that he observed outside of the cemetery ultimately count towards his Neder Naziros. And what's the halacha? Umevi carbon tuma. Rabbi saying, obviously in this case, now again, we'll discuss exactly what the novelties in these cases, but halacha l'maisa over here, now if he left the cemetery, that gives the opportunity for the Neder Naziros to devolve upon him. And now when he goes back in, again, the Tumah is there again. He loses whatever days he's observed. At halacha l'maisa, he's going to have to bring a carbon Tumah. Okay. So that's what we're going to see. We're going to see essentially what are the mechanics. This is going to be machlokes in the Gemara. When you take a Neder Naziros in a cemetery, what is happening? Is it the pshat now that there's a binding Neder Naziros, but there's just something preventing the Neder Naziros from devolving upon you, and the moment you leave the cemetery, boom, the Neder Naziros attaches itself to you, or that effectively you've done nothing. Taking a Neder Naziros in a cemetery is an irrelevant statement. That's exactly what we're going to see in the Gemara. Rabbi Elazar says, Lo bo bayom. Rabbi Elazar Omer, Lo bo bayom, shene'emar, Shabbos. Rabbi Elazar says it depends. Rabbi Elazar says, Rabbi say that if you go out of the cemetery and come back in, you haven't lost anything, and you also don't have to bring a carbon tumah. Why? Why not? Listen to this incredible Rabbi say. Why? Shene'emar v'ayom harishonim yiplu. Rabbi Elazar says that the way the pasuk reads, Rabbi, when it comes to tumah, is as follows: that halacha l'maisa, if a person becomes tummy, the Torah says v'hayomim harishonim yiplu. The days you have observed, yiplu, literally again will fall by the wayside. Rabbi Elazar is medayik. Rabbi say, what does the pasuk say? V'hayomim. What does yomim mean? What does yomim mean? Plural. Days. Days means you have to have at least 2 days of Naziros under your belt for Tumah to destroy those days and obligate you to go ahead and bring a carbon. Incredible. So Gemara says, let's analyze. Itmar. And this goes to Rabbi Yedidya's Shaila. Itmar. Here we go. Let's at least start this sugya. Oh. Good. Itmar, Misha, Nazir, Vubevesakvara. So we'll say, let's now drill down into this. A person goes ahead and takes a Neder Nazirus, and he is in the cemetery, So we'll say, so now what's the halacha? Rabbi Yochanan says, Nazirus chala alav. So we'll say, Rabbi Yochanan is of the opinion that the Neder is chal on you. The Neder is chal. Right? It devolves upon you. So in other words, what's happening over here? What's happening? I'm in the cemetery. I say, Hareini Nazir. What happens, Rabbi, in that moment? What happens? Am I a Nazir? Kind of. What's happening over here is like this. The Naziros is chal. There is a neder that is upon me. There's a neder that's upon me. But the ability to observe the neder, right? The ability or the obligation to observe the neder is not yet there. I go about it because I can't. Conversely, one second. Rabbi Reish Lakish says, "Ein Naziros chal alav." Reish Lakish says, no, the Naziros is not chal. When you say Hareini Nazir in a cemetery, Rabbi, what's the effect of that statement? It's meaningless. Right? In other words, it doesn't matter. It doesn't accomplish anything. So this is the fundamental machlokas. Rabbi Yochanan says, when you see Hareini Nazir in a cemetery, ultimately again, the neder is chal. It's just that you can't execute on it, right? So the neder applies, right? Then I will say, when we see chalivs, if somebody were to ask you, tell me, where are you holding in life? What can you answer, according to Rabbi Yochanan? What could you answer? I'm a Nazir. Just a non-practicing one, right? I'm a non-practicing, right? I'm a not yet observant Nazir. In other words, I'll say, so Lamaisa again, the neder is chal. The neder is chal. You just can't do anything with it. You'll see what the nafka means. According to Reish Lakish, you take a neder Nazirus in a cemetery, that's an irrelevant, inconsequential, meaningless statement. And I will say, where's the nafka meaning? Here we go. Rabbi Yochanan Amar Nez, here it is. Rabbi Yochanan Amar Nazirus chalav. Rabbi Yochanan says, when you become a Nazir in the cemetery, ultimately, again, the Nazirus is chal. Savar, listen to this. Misla talya. He holds, I will say, that when you become a Nazir, it's almost as if that neder is like suspended. It's right, you took it upon yourself, but the application or the execution or the living of that mitla talya, literally, it's suspended over you. The kaima, kevan de mishkechatara chayla. Once you find yourself in a state of tara, in a state of ritual purity, I will say what happens? Boom. The neder devolves upon you. Reish Lakish says, Ein Nazirus chal alav. Reish Lakish says, no. You see Areini Nazir in a cemetery. Both say, you see Areini Nazir in a cemetery. What's the effect of that statement? What's the effect? Zero. Now both say, now watch this. This is incredibly important. So now, I come out of the cemetery. I go through my purification process. According to Reish Lakish, what's my status? I'm a non-Nazir. And therefore, I hadar va'amar chayli alei v'ilo lo. And therefore, again, Reish Lakish says, if you want to become a Nazir, what do you have to do? You have to re-accept a neder nazirus upon you. So I will say, you hear what's happening over here? So I will say, so this is great. Even if we had to get back on the plane right now, first getting some additional coffee, right, with milk. Right? I was like, so Rabbi said, listen to this. I'm standing in a cemetery. I see Hareini Nazir. So what's happening? Rabbi Yochanan says, you're a Nazir. You just can't practice your Nazirus yet. But that neder is upon. In other words, you've made a binding neder. You've made a binding promise to be a Nazir. You just can't observe that neder because of circumstantial realities. But the moment your circumstances change and the ability to observe a neder Nazirus is there, you are a Nazir. Do you have to do anything else to accept that neder Nazirus upon yourself? No. Zero. All you need is your circumstances to change, and ultimately, again, you're a Nazir. Reish Lakish says, what are you talking about? You cannot accept something upon yourself if you don't have the ability to act on it. So you go ahead and you say Hareini Nazir in a cemetery. That's a meaningless statement. That doesn't make any sense. Right? So we'll say, it doesn't make any sense. And therefore, again, once you become tahar, if you want to be a Nazir, you want to be practicing Nazir, what do you have to do? You have to accept it upon yourself again. If your circumstances don't allow for the performance of the neder, then the verbal articulation of the neder is absolutely meaningless. So if you want to become a Nazir again, if you want to be a Nazir after you are purified, you could do that, but you would have to make another Kabbalah. I'll just point out that even if you think about this machlokes hashkafically, it's so profound. What are they arguing about? Listen to this. What are they arguing about? So Reish Lakish is saying like this. Reish Lakish is saying, if you say you're going to do something, bless you, you say you're going to do something, but you don't do anything, right? You accept, this is what I'm going to be, but you don't perform. What does Reish Lakish say? Meaningless. An articulation of self-actualization, an aspirational articulation is only meaningful if you do something about it. To say what you're going to do, talk about what you're going to do, plan what you're going to do, but you don't deliver, tachlis, you don't act, it's meaningless. It's absolutely nothing. And comes along Rabbi Yochanan, what does Rabbi Yochanan say? Chas v'shalom. When a person talks about an aspiration, right, a person goes ahead and has an aspiration, a moment of articulating what they want to be, who they want to be, what they want to accomplish in life. Sometimes your circumstances do not allow for the actualization of your aspirations. Sometimes it happens. Rabbi say, you know how it works sometimes in life? Sometimes I'm just standing in the graveyard. Right? Sometimes I'm just standing in the cemetery. For whatever the reason, I can't get my act together. For whatever the reason, I just can't get my stuff together. For whatever the reason, I just can't move myself forward. But when I articulate that I want something bigger, better, and holier in life, Rabbi Yochanan says, that is absolutely unequivocally meaningful. Rish Lakish, don't say that. Don't say that just because you don't act. Because sometimes in life you can't. But I will say, this is an example, right? This is an example of a guy who's not acting why. Why isn't he becoming a Nazir the moment after his articulation? Why not? Circumstances are preventing him from doing so. It's not that he's lazy. It's not that he doesn't want it. He can't do it right now. Reish Lakish says, I don't care. You give all the excuses in the world. If you don't deliver actionally statements, all right, articulations of aspirations for greatness are meaningless if they're not followed up by action. Rabbi Yochanan says, Chas v'shalom. When a Yid articulates that he wants to be great, a Yid articulates that he wants to accomplish something, even if he can't deliver, even if he can't act, I will say, dreams of greatness are meaningful even if they're not immediately followed by action. Because at least if I'm dreaming about greatness, even if I'm not actionally delivering, at least my head is in the right place. And if my head is in the right place, then in Meretz Hashem, my body will catch up as well. So we'll say, we'll stop over here for today with this machlokas. So we're leaving off in the midst of this machlokas. We'll say, we're going to now do a little bit of Meretz Hashem, a little bit of Mesilas Yesharim.